The French Revolution from 1788 to 1795 by me. The top 15 events during the French Revolution. May 1789, the States General. Before the States General was called, France was divided into three states, which represents the social classes of the people. In the first estate, it was the clergy. In the second estate, it was the nobility, and the third estate is the majority of the population. Note that the middle class workers, called bourgeoisies, were also part of the third estates. King Louis XVI establishes a legislative body called the States General. In it, the body included the three estates, allowing all the states to discuss the ongoing economic crisis. Some of these causes are deficient spending, like the government spending more money than what they can earn. France had to spend more money on the 7 Years' Wars and the American Revolution, plus bad harvest of crops made food very expensive, reaching to a point where poor peasants and city dwellers were starving as they were not able to buy any food at all. King Louis prepared all three estates to write cahiers, or like notes or notebooks listing all the grievances of the French citizens. Most of the topics they wrote about were on tax reform, freedom of the press, and the regular meeting of the States General. June 1789, the National Assembly. In the States General, each estate only had one vote. Therefore, the first and the second estate would team up and they would always outvote the third estate. This angered the third estate, so they left and created the National Assembly. Delegates of the third estate moved to an indoor tennis court as they were scared of the king finding out and dismissing them. Members of the National Assembly then swore on the tennis court an oath in which they promised that never separate and to meet one wherever the circumstances might require until we have established a sound and just constitution. 1789, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizens. Inspired by the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen announced by the National Assembly that all men were born and will remain free and equal in rights. The Declaration insisted of having the government to protect these natural rights of citizens. The Declaration claimed that all male citizens were equal even before the Constitution was made. It also demanded freedom of religion and fair taxes. 89. Women's March to Versailles. 6,000 women from the third estate mostly of them marched down to Versailles and demanded to see the king. However, most of the crowd's anger was directed to the king's wife, Marie Antoinette. People were agitated on how the Austrian-born Queen of France is spending her life in great pleasures and extravagance. Although she was compassionate to the poor, her lifestyle hid her sympathy to poverty. The crowd then forced the royal family to return back to Paris, which they did unhappily. 1791, King Louis and his wife escapes. Louis and his wife decided to escape France one night in June. King Louis disguised himself as a servant while the Queen as a governess. Somewhere along the way of the escape, a French citizen stopped them and discovered that the king and queen were escaping. They were then brought back to Paris, and it showed the king was a traitor to the revolution. 1791, Constitution of 1791. The National Assembly completed their main goal, which is constructing a sound and just constitution. The Constitution used the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen as a preamble and setting up a limited monarchy in place of absolute monarchy. The Legislative Assembly was created. It had the power to make new laws, collect taxes, and decide on issues of war and peace. The Constitution then replaced the old provinces of the ancient regime with 83 new departments. Inspired by Enlightenment thinkers, the Constitution ensured equality to all male citizens, not female though, and ended the interference of the church to the government. 1791, the Declaration of Rights of Women and the Female Citizens. Women weren't satisfied on how the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen did not grant to women but only to men. A French journalist, Olympe de Gouges, demanded equal rights to women as well. She claims that all women were born free and her rights were the same as those of man. She reasoned that citizens, including all men and women, are equal in the state's eyes and must be equally eligible for all public offices, positions, and jobs. Radicals fight for power. With the newly elected Legislative Assembly in 1791, it survived for a very short time. Their currency, assignats, dropped in value, which in return caused the prices to rise rapidly. Radical groups within the Legislative Assembly pushed the revolution into a more radical phase. For example, a group of working-class men and women, called sans-culottes, wanted a republic or government that is ruled by elected representative instead of monarch. Just like the sans-culottes, the Jacobins, who were middle-class lovers of intellectual, also wanted a republic by using pamphleteers and sympathetic newspaper editors. 1792. The French declares war. Since neighboring countries did not like the idea of revolution, France declared war on Austria and Prussia, then Britain, then other states. They declare war because France is eager on spreading revolution and to destroy tyranny not only on France but also destroy it on neighboring countries. The opposing country thought it was going to be an easy fight. However, the war started from 1792 and ended in 1815. Tensions lead to violence. On August, persons infiltrated the royal palace where royal families lived in. The persons killed the royal guards, however, the royal family escaped to the Legislative Assembly. On September, the French citizens attacked prisons which held the nobility and the clergies. About 1,200 prisoners who were nobles and priests were killed in that month. It was considered to be the September Massacre. A few days later, the radicals of the Legislative Assembly took control. They called for election of a new legislative body called the National Convention. After this was formed, they extended the right to vote, suffrage, to all male citizens, not just a man who owns a property. This newly formed legislative body has now entered into a more extreme radical state. Completely abolished monarchy and replaced it established a republic, that French Republic. The Jacobins, who is currently controlling the convention, desires to erase all traces of Asian regime. They seize lands of nobles and abolish the titles of nobility. The execution of King Louis. The king was put on trial for being a traitor to France, convicted by a single vote. Louis was sentenced to death on a foggy morning. Another symbol to an end of the ancient regime. Months passed, and his wife joined him, Marie Antoinette, to the guillotine. 1793, the National Convention creates the Committee of Public Safety. To be able to save France from its threats, the National Convention creates the Committee of Public Safety. This 12-member committee prepared France for an all-out war. They issued a mass levy on all citizens so all France is able to contribute to the war effort. On top of that war, the committee was also granted the power of trials and executions. July 1793, Robespierre enters the Committee of Public Safety. A lawyer and politician, Maximilien Robespierre became the leader of the Committee of Public Safety. Due to his selflessness and dedication, he quickly became the committee's leader. He embraced the ideas of Enlightenment philosopher Rousseau that the will of all people is the source of all legitimate law. He promoted freedom of religion and abolished slavery. September 1793, the French enters the Reign of Terror. Through this time, the revolutionary courts conducts more and more trials to those who are suspected to be traitors of the revolution. At the end of the Reign of Terror, about 300,000 were arrested and 17,000 were executed. People falsely accused many of these victims. Created by a French doctor and also the member of legislature, Dr. Joseph Jolitin invents the guillotine. This invention provided execution to be clean and fast. It was more humane yet inhumane method than using the traditional axe. Another symbol of the terror. September 1975, the Constitution of 1975. After the Reign of Terror, French monarchs produced another constitution. This new constitution created a five-man directory or a five-man committee who joined together to form a head of state or a head of government. The constitution also set up two legislatures who were elected by male citizens of property.